Welcome everybody to Intentional Mastery. Crisis happens anytime, anywhere. If you are somebody who wants to be effective during crisis, this is the video for you. Stay tuned, I'm coming back. Now, what is crisis? Crisis, if I simply put, it's an unexpected situation. We never expect that to come in our life. And all of a sudden, when it comes, we may not have the exact resources that is required for the moment. How we're going to respond to the situation is very important, and it determines how much we will be successful in getting out of that crisis effectively. And time matters the most. Now, there are a few steps that you could always follow in any kind of crisis. Now that we're going through a crisis, a global pandemic, COVID-19, which is affecting the people all over the world. Now, nobody wants to go through this. Nobody wants to have the pain of what we are going through right now. But it's unavoidable. But what we can do is all about how we respond to it. And that matters the most. And in a moment like this, those are the things that we tend to forget as human beings. Now, let me tell you this. For an example, COVID-19 that we're going through is a global crisis. Now, that crisis is translated to people's life in different manners. Some people are affected financially. Some people are affected in their job. Some people are affected in change management. Maybe they have to geographically move to another location because of this. Maybe they have struggled working from home. Now, all these are personal crises which is translated from a global crisis. Now, I'm going to talk about more of that in terms of personal crisis. How do you deal with that? So there are a few things that we can do in a situation like this, and that's very important. And I'm sorry for people who have lost their family members, who have lost maybe their job and things that's happening to them. It's not easy to go through a loss. Now, while I say that, they might require additional support for those areas. Now, what I'm going to share today is applicable for any crisis that you might go through. So the number one thing that you should do in a crisis, I'm going to share that point at last. So stay tuned until the end to listen to that. I'm going to tell all other points right now, and you have to listen to the first point to make sure all other point works. If you don't implement the first point, nothing else is going to work. So make sure you listen to the first point. Now, the second point is get to know your crisis. No matter what crisis you are in, the first thing that you would require is information. If you don't have the right information that is required, you will not be able to take a better decision. So clarity of information is very important in a crisis moment. And you need to make sure that you are getting it from the right resources. Because in a crisis moment, you might get to hear a lot of things. It is very much required that you filter all those informations. If you don't filter the informations, what will happen is that you will end up taking the wrong decisions, and it will also affect you mentally. And I think that happens to people also right now, because now media is good, but when it comes to crisis moments like this, sometimes media can add problem to it. So it is very much required that you minimize the consumption of media or any channels that can deviate the purpose of you getting information. Now, once you know the information, you will be able to take better decisions. You will be able to. Now, sometimes you might have to take decision immediately. There are times that you should wait. These informations will help you understand whether you would need to take decision immediately or you should not. So all these things will become clear once you get more information about it. Now, if you see the COVID-19 scenario also, people were not aware of what is really happening. At first, people said that mask was not required. Now, later, when WHO or the authorities, when they found the right information, they found that a mask is required because they got information. What is information? That single piece of information was very crucial over there. It spreads through air, right? The impact of that single piece of information is very huge. So do not leave any information in a crisis moment. Try to collect as much as possible while you limit the wrong informations. Now, the third point is accept what you cannot control and focus on what you can control. We tend to focus on what we cannot control. Now, there are many things, or there might be many things that you cannot control in a crisis moment. Especially right now, since many of us are affected, we cannot control the fact that we have to limit ourselves at home sometimes. We have to work from home. We have to find the right resources which may not be available all the time. So all these factors are there is something that we cannot control. But The good thing is that there are things that we can control. There are things that we can focus on doing. And if you're going to focus on what you can control, that's what will be effective for you to get out of the crisis. Now, it is not just about getting out of it effectively, but it also helps us mentally. It kind of gives us a confidence in terms of what we could do. Because like I said, we tend to look at, oh, I'm going through a crisis right now, and these are the things that I cannot do. And that kind of threatens me. That kind of makes me feel that, oh, how will I survive in this situation? How will I go forward? And all those questions comes up. When we look at what we could possibly do, it might be, we're just thinking about it, or we can't think about it. Then it kind of ignites our brain. It kind of gives us a hope that we can come out of it. We can do something about it. And that itself can bring in a lot of solutions right in front of us. Now, the fourth thing, and it is very important in any scenarios, I would say, make sure that you take a good self-care. And that's one thing that people tend to forget in a crisis moment. Now, while I say this, there might be people in pressure to perform at this moment. In a crisis moment, the frontline workers, they might have to go the extra mile. Now, while I appreciate people who do that, it is very much required that you focus also on the self-care factor. Now, self-care is not self-indulgence. It can be also sometimes. Now, the difference between self-indulgence is that self-care is long-term, self-indulgence is short-term. So, self-indulgence gives you a short-term happiness. It just gives you a boost, but it just goes away. But self-care gives you a long-term impact. Like, you would need to make sure that you sleep on time and you sleep well, which actually have long-term impact. You eat well, which have long-term impact. But let's say you watch TV for a while, some entertainment. It might make you feel happy for a moment, but it may not have a long-term impact. So, which is the classic example of self-indulgence. So make sure that you're doing everything possible. It might be exercise, it might be reading a book, it might be maybe sitting for a prayer or meditation, or going for a walk when it's possible, where it's possible, eating well, sleeping well, thinking well. And that's where the self-care comes in. So when you take care of yourself, you will be able to think through the situation very well. Now, not the final point, but the first point is have a growth mindset, not a victim mindset or a fixed mindset. The growth mindset term is used by Carol Dweck, and she has mentioned it as fixed mindset. Growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Now, I'm going to do a video on growth mindset, which you will find it over here when it's done, which will give you a detailed information on how you could develop a growth mindset. Now, that being said, growth mindset is the ability to look through any situation with a mind to learn, with a mind prepared to find something that you can look at developing. Now, having a growth mindset or fixed mindset determines the result of what we experience right now. A victim mindset, for example, will always look at what is not available, or the victim always feels like, oh, I can't do anything, I'm helpless, there is nothing that I can do. Or they're not supporting me, they're not with me, I don't have the resources, I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't have people. Now, growth mindset looks at, hey, I know it's a bad time, I know it's a bad situation for me to be in, but there might be something that I can learn from this. There might be a way out of this. There might be something that I can develop. I might be able to thrive through this situation. Let me look at what are the possibilities. Now, like I said before, if you don't have a growth mindset, all the other 3 points that I mentioned to you, it's not going to work really well. A growth mindset is really essential for you to get the right information from the right resources and limit the information that is not helpful and accept the things that you cannot control and focus on the things that you can control, and to take care of yourself. If you're going to do this, if you're going to follow this, I'm sure you will be able to pretty much come out of a crisis very much effectively. Now, while I pray for people who are affected, I wish you all the best. Look at the possibilities of how you could thrive in the situation. And I'm happy to let you know that this is my first video from Intentional Mastery, and I'm looking at creating more videos similar to this content. And if you're interested to receive more of this kind of content, make sure that you subscribe to my channel and click the bell icon for more notifications. Stay blessed. See you very soon. Take care.